of nonstop news, your Weather Authority forecast, and SWX sports headlines. This is NBC Right Now, local news, 11 at 11.
Air 4 was lifting off the helipad here at Fisher Plaza. Something horribly went wrong.
A community remembers two men killed today in a tragic crash in Seattle when a KOMO News helicopter fell from the sky and crashed right in front of the Space Needle. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Shane Ettinger.
And I'm Meredith Boggs. Tonight, we're learning more about the investigation into the crash and hearing the son of one of the victims remember his father's career.
Now, this crash happened around 8 o'clock this morning. The chopper was refueling after covering a water main break north of Seattle. Moments after taking off from Fisher Plaza, it crashed down on top of several vehicles.
All-day crews worked to clear the streets. Several Seattle landmarks, including the Space Needle and monorail, were closed. Now the investigation into the crash begins. Dylan Wollenhouse is in Seattle with some new details on the crash.
Good evening tonight from Seattle. We're outside KOMO-4 News headquarters where the memorial has been growing here for both of the men killed in the accident this morning. Pilot Gary Fitzner, and you also have Bill Strothman, who is the photojournalist on board that was killed. Several flowers have been placed around the crash site and outside here of the KOMO News headquarters. The NTSB says it is looking into figuring out what exactly happened, and about 5 days out from determining a preliminary cause of the crash.
The NTSB says the chopper landed back at the KOMO helipad for about 30 minutes after covering a news event. It refueled, and when it took off again, that's when a witness says they heard a whiny noise from the engine. It rotated counterclockwise, says the NTSB, then crashed at the corner of John and Broad underneath the Space Needle. The pilot and photojournalist Bill Strothman inside were killed instantly. Another man inside of a car was taken to the hospital with serious injuries after burns. Of course, this is very early on in the investigation, and there are any number of factors that could have caused the crash, says the NTSB, but some key witness accounts early on about a possible mechanical issue may give investigators a solid direction on where to look.
Witness accounts have said there was an unusual noise coming from the helicopter during the time of departure. And
does that indicate anything to you?
Not at this point, but it's certainly something that the investigative team will look into.
Dylan Wollenhouse, NBC Right Now.
Now, the National Transportation Safety Board says investigators are examining every possibility as they try to determine what caused the crash. A spokesperson says investigators are working to document the scene and clear the wreckage. A preliminary report is expected in 5 days, followed by a full report with a probable cause in up to a year.
And as Dylan mentioned, the investigation into what happened continues tonight, but today we learned a lot about the two men that died in the helicopter crash this morning. Katie Steiner looked into who these men were, the legacy, and the people they leave behind.
The two men that died are cameraman Bill Strothman and the pilot, Gary Fitzner. Fitzner was flying the chopper and worked for Helicopter Incorporated, the company that leased that chopper that crashed. His family said he was very proud to fly for KOMO. His brother told KOMO that he died doing what he loved. Bill Strothman was at KOMO for 30 years, but retired recently. Since then, he was working as a freelancer and also was an employee of Helicopters Incorporated. His coworkers have said that he's one of the best storytellers ever to have worked at KOMO. He has a wife, Nora, and daughter, and his son, Dan, also works at KOMO as a photographer.
As Katie just mentioned, photographer Bill Strothman worked at KOMO for 30 years, but recently retired. He earned 13 Emmy Awards during his career. After the accident, Strothman's son spoke to the media about the kind of man his dad was. Strothman's son, Dan, followed in his father's footsteps and also works as a photographer at KOMO-TV. He said his father was loved by all who met him and had a great eye for finding the human element in the stories that he covered.
He was one of the nicest men ever, and just so loved and respected, because he was a great photographer, but he was just a great person. I mean, that's the thing about him, that everyone that met him, he touched them, and he just had a very kind, gentle soul.
A man who was injured on the ground is improving tonight and is now in serious condition. 38-year-old Richard Newman suffered second and third-degree burns to 20% of his body. Now, we found this earlier tonight. It's one of the last shots of the KOMO-TV News helicopter right before the tragic crash. Crews from King 5 in Seattle snapped this photo of the helicopter perfectly framed against a rainbow. It's hard to put into words what that image means.
Taking a look at some other headlines tonight, the state auditor's office released a report this week on their investigation into Benton County Fire District 6. They discovered a secretary had purchased items with thousands of dollars of taxpayer money that were not for fire district use. We spoke with the district fire chief today. He assures us that not only did they report the fraud, they are also working to recover that taxpayer money. Just over $19,000 are in question, including more than $6,500 that were spent on things like a tablet and other electronic software.
The trust that the citizens give in us is well earned, and we want them to know that we are pursuing this to make sure that a good outcome comes of it.
The auditor's office says that if charges are filed against the former employee by the county, the district could try to recover more than $5,000 additional dollars in investigation costs. It's important to note that all of the department's expense reports from 2008 until May of 2012 were examined by state auditors, and the fraud claims involving this one man who no longer works for the district were the only issues they found. Some new information tonight. After more than a year of moratoriums, Yakima's City Council has decided against a ban on new billboards. The proposal failed by a 4-3 vote tonight. The council did ask staffers to prepare an ordinance to ensure that the city's billboards are kept in good condition. City Council also decided to wait until April to consider any changes to the city's pit bull ban. They also decided tonight to hold off on any changes to the bus system for a few more weeks. The council did approve a proposal to bring in Catherine Gustafson, a Yakima native, as the consultant for a downtown plaza design.
Crisis avoided. A bomb threat at the Yakima Legends Casino in Toppenish has been defused. This morning, the casino and surrounding tribal buildings were put on lockdown after employees found a suspicious device outside the casino. Local law enforcement, the FBI, and the bomb squad from the Tri-Cities had to be called in. The bomb squad robot tipped over the trash can to investigate, and there was no explosion.
You never know when these devices can be real or not real. You've seen that throughout the United States where, they didn't take it serious, and you suffer serious consequences from that. We want to be cautious in that regard.
Police have not said what the suspicious device ended up being. The lockdown was lifted this afternoon. Well, 7 people are back home tonight after getting a whiff of an odd smell that sent them to the hospital as a precaution this afternoon. It happened around 1 when students and staff noticed a chemical smell coming from a restroom at Prosser High School. According to the assistant superintendent, everyone was evacuated, but they were allowed back in after 20 minutes. Firefighters looked around, but they're not sure what caused the odor. And workers near Pendleton are digging a small canyon in a ranch off of Highway 37 where a truck accident spilled nearly 5,000 gallons of diesel fuel earlier this month. So far, crews have excavated 18,000 cubic yards of contaminated soil. A trucker lost control of his rig on March 1st, and the fuel was in a trailer that rolled into a ditch. A state worker heading up the operation says there's no way to tell how long it will take to dig all the contaminated soil out.
Pasco city leaders want to know what you like and don't like about the city. Tonight, the city held the first of 2 community forums, and to no surprise, the hot topic was Road 68. Several community members say the road is congested and the turn lanes need to be redesigned to improve traffic flow. Other popular topics included stray dogs, concerns about the brightness of the new power-saving streetlights, and the need for more sidewalks along Argent Road.
I just think it's a great opportunity to come down and let your voice be heard. The fact that they are having 2 of them makes me feel like they value each and every voice that's heard. So I think it's great. I think it's awesome. It needs to keep happening.
If you missed tonight's meeting, you can still catch tomorrow's community forum. It's at 7 p.m. at the Pasco Senior Center on North 7th Street.
Time now for our first check of the weather out there, and after a beautiful spring day today, we're going to get some showers in here, and winds are going to be picking up for our Wednesday. You can see the front moving into the region right now. We don't have any showers on our side of the Cascades, but as we go overnight and into the early morning hours, we'll see some of those showers kind of moving down into the region. And it looks like we have the possibility of some of those showers even into the afternoon hours. Winds are going to be on the blustery side as we get into tomorrow's weather. I'm back in a couple of minutes, and we'll be checking out that extended outlook. But now it's your leadoff sports with Matt.
Thank you, Tim. Leadoff spot tonight, the Kennewick boys soccer team looking to pick up where it left off last season. So far, so good. Take you out to Lansing Stadium second half, facing Prosser. Javier Valencia, the pretty feet to Daniel Uribe, who heads it home, and the Lions roll over the Mustangs 9-0. The final from Lansing Stadium tonight. The Ken Bone era now done at Washington State. The former SPU and Portland State head man went 80-86 during his 5 years at Wazoo and just couldn't seem to get any traction. Team went just 10-21 this past season. Athletic director Bill Moose says the school needs to revitalize its basketball fan base. H1 Unlimited Hydro Racing will return to Coeur d'Alene this summer. The Diamond Cup took place there last summer for the first time in 45 years. Organizers hope to sell more tickets. 50,000 people attended, but only about 15,000 were paid attendees. Coming up in about 15 minutes, the tournament getting underway in Ohio. For now, back to Shane and Meredith.
Thanks, Matt. Washington now has an official state waterfall thanks to a group of elementary school students and their teachers.
This all started back in October when two teachers in Washington decided to take their civic lesson to the next level. They started drafting a bill, doing all of their own research to make Palouse Falls the official waterfall of Washington. Representative Joe Shumick visited the class in the fall, and he helped answer all their questions and decided to sponsor the bill. Their teacher, Janet Camp, says it's great to see how far her lesson has come.
It's emotional. It is. We wanted the kids to have something to hang on to that was real, and that's what we're doing. This is absolutely real for them and something I hope that they'll remember all their life.
It's a really good learning experience because now I can tell my kids and my grandkids how it was.
The director of Washington State Parks tells us making Palouse Falls the official waterfall of Washington should also bring more tourism to the area. Pretty big deal for them.
Sure.
Well, that's your first 11 minutes of news, weather, and sports. Coming up next, no one likes to be the victim of a scam.
That may be why thousands of people filed complaints last year. We'll take a look at some of the top complaints and what you can do to protect yourself up next.